In every generation, God raises a leader, someone ordinary in the eyes of the world, yet chosen for an extraordinary purpose. Among the stories written in the pages of history, few shine as brightly as the life of King David, a shepherd boy who rose from the quiet hills of Bethlehem to become the greatest king Israel ever knew. His story is not merely a tale of power or military triumph. It is a testimony of faith, courage, obedience, and the incredible journey of a young man who trusted God with all his heart. A warrior who faced giants without fear, a poet whose songs still resound across centuries, a leader shaped by humility, perseverance, and the unshakable conviction that the battle belongs to the Lord. But the path to greatness was not easy. David walked through rejection, danger, betrayal, and wilderness seasons. He faced enemies outside and storms within. Yet through every rise and every fall, the hand of God never left him. His life is a powerful reminder that purpose is born in hidden places, that strength is found in surrender, and that destiny comes to those who wait on God faithfully. Today, we begin the remarkable journey of the life of King David, from his humble beginnings as a shepherd boy, through his divine anointing, and to his unimaginable victory over the giant Goliath. This is the story of courage, the story of faith, the story of a heart after God's own heart. Welcome to part 1, From Shepherd to Giant Slayer, the early life of King David. Section 1, Birth, Background, and Early Life of David. David was born in the town of Bethlehem in the tribe of Judah around the year 1040 BCE. Bethlehem means house of bread, a name that later became deeply symbolic because both King David and Jesus Christ, the bread of life, were born there. David came from the household of Jesse, a humble man who had 8 sons, and David was the youngest among them. In ancient Israel, the youngest son often carried the heaviest manual responsibilities, and so David was entrusted with caring for his father's sheep in the rugged hills surrounding Bethlehem. These hills were quiet, lonely, and often dangerous. Wild animals such as lions and bears roamed freely, threatening the safety of the flock. But even as a young boy, David proved himself strong, responsible, and courageous. He learned to guide and protect the sheep with firmness and patience. It was during those long days and nights in the field that God shaped David's character. He learned courage through protecting the flock, faith by trusting God in the face of danger, and patience through the slow rhythms of shepherd life. There, alone under the open sky, David also nurtured a deep love for music. He played the harp with great skill, pouring his heart into worship songs that would later become part of the Psalms. Many believe that some of David's earliest songs of trust, fear, joy, and praise were born in those quiet moments when the only audience was God himself. Section 2. How David was anointed by Samuel. Before David was called by God, Israel had a king, Saul, the first king in the nation's history. But Saul repeatedly disobeyed God. He feared people more than he feared the Lord. He acted impulsively, kept forbidden spoils after battle, and even spared King Agag of the Amalekites when God had commanded total destruction. These actions revealed a heart that no longer honored God's authority. Because of this, God rejected Saul from being king. God then sent the prophet Samuel to Bethlehem with the secret mission to anoint the next king of Israel from among Jesse's sons. Samuel arrived and asked Jesse to bring his sons before him. Jesse's eldest sons were strong, tall, and impressive in appearance, men who easily looked like future kings. But as Samuel looked at each one, God spoke to him and said, "Man looks at outward appearance, but the Lord looks at the heart." One by one, all 7 older sons passed before Samuel, and each time the Lord said, "No, not this one." Finally, Samuel asked whether Jesse had any other sons. Jesse answered almost as an afterthought, saying, "There remains the youngest, but he is out keeping the sheep." David was not even considered important enough to attend the gathering, yet he was God's chosen one. When David was brought in, Samuel saw a young man with bright eyes, a healthy complexion, and a presence filled with life and promise. Immediately God told Samuel that this was the one. Samuel took the horn of oil and anointed David in the presence of his brothers. And from that day forward, the Spirit of the Lord came powerfully upon him. But even after this life-changing moment, David did not run ahead of God's plan. He returned to the fields, continued tending the sheep, and waited patiently for God's timing. Section 3. How David entered Saul's court. Meanwhile, King Saul began to experience deep spiritual torment. because he had turned away from God, the Spirit of the Lord departed from him, and an evil spirit came to trouble him. Saul was overwhelmed with fear, anxiety, and inner distress. His servants noticed that music often helped soothe his mind, and they suggested finding a skilled harpist who could play for him during his dark moments. One of Saul's servants spoke up and said he had seen a young man, a son of Jesse, from Bethlehem, who played the harp with extraordinary skill. The servant described David not only as a gifted musician, but also as brave, wise, respectful, and clearly favored by the Lord. Hearing this, Saul sent messengers to Jesse, requesting that David be brought to him. Jesse prepared gifts, bread, wine, and a young goat, and sent David to the palace. When David entered Saul's service, he quickly gained the king's admiration. Saul grew to love him and eventually made him his armor-bearer, a trusted and honorable position in the royal court. Whenever the evil spirit troubled Saul, David played his harp, and the sound of the music brought calmness and relief. The darkness would lift, and Saul would find rest again. Through music, God used David to bring peace to a troubled king, even before David ever held a sword or commanded an army. Section 4. How Goliath appeared in the Valley of Elah. While David continued serving King Saul with music in the palace, the nation of Israel soon faced one of its greatest military threats. The Philistines, Israel's long-standing enemies, assembled their armies for war. They marched into Judah and camped between the towns of Soko and Azekah in a place called Ephes Dammim. Saul gathered the Israelite forces and marched out to meet them, establishing his camp in the Valley of Elah. The two armies faced each other, positioned on opposite hills, with the valley stretched out between them. From the Philistine camp came a champion, unlike any man Israel had ever seen. His name was Goliath, a giant warrior from the city of Gath. He towered over 9 feet tall, a living mountain of strength and intimidation. His bronze helmet shone in the sun, and his coat of armor, made of heavy overlapping bronze scales, alone weighed more than 125 pounds. He wore bronze plates to protect his legs, and on his back was slung a massive javelin. The wooden shaft of his spear was as thick as a weaver's beam, and the iron tip of that spear weighed around 15 pounds. A shield bearer walked before him, carrying a large protective shield. Each morning and every evening for 40 days, Goliath stepped forward from the Philistine ranks and shouted across the valley toward Israel. His voice echoed between the hills as he mocked the armies of God and challenged them to single combat.
"Why have you come out to line up for battle?" he roared. "Choose a man to come down and fight me. If he kills me, then we will become your servants. But if I kill him, you will become ours. I defy the armies of Israel today. Send me a man who will fight me."
His challenge struck terror into the hearts of Saul and all the soldiers of Israel. No one dared to face him. Section 5. How Jesse sent David to the battlefield. Back in Bethlehem, David continued to divide his time between serving Saul in the palace and tending his father's sheep. Meanwhile, David's 3 oldest brothers, Eliab, Abinadab, and Shimeah, had joined Saul's army in the Valley of Elah. One day, Jesse called his youngest son. He prepared a basket filled with roasted grain, 10 loaves of bread, and 10 cuts of cheese. Jesse told David to take these provisions quickly to his brothers and deliver the cheese to the commander of their unit. He also instructed David to check on the welfare of his brothers and return with news of how they were doing. David rose early the next morning, entrusted the flock to the care of another shepherd, and set out for the battlefield. When he arrived at the camp, he saw the Israelite army marching to the battle lines with shouts and war cries. David left his supplies with the keeper of provisions and ran to greet his brothers. As David was speaking with them, Goliath once again came forward from the Philistine camp. His voice thundered across the valley as he repeated his usual challenge. But this time something different happened. David heard him. The soldiers around David trembled and fled. They said to David, "Have you seen this man? He comes out every day to defy Israel. The king has promised a great reward to the man who kills him: wealth, exemption of his family from taxes, and marriage to the king's daughter." At that time, it was already known that Saul's daughter Michal admired David, and later she indeed fell in love with him. David listened carefully, then asked the men near him,
"What will be done for the man who kills this Philistine and ends this disgrace against Israel? Who is this uncircumcised Philistine that he should defy the armies of the living God?"
The men repeated the same reward. But when David's eldest brother Eliab heard him speaking, anger rose in him. He accused David of pride and said that he only came to watch the battle, belittling him because he kept a few sheep in the wilderness. David responded humbly, saying, "What have I done now? I was only asking a question." Then he turned to others and repeated the same inquiry. Word reached King Saul that a young man in the camp was speaking boldly about fighting Goliath. The king immediately sent for David. Section 6. How David confronted and killed Goliath. When David stood before Saul, he spoke with a confidence and faith that surprised the king. "Do not lose heart," David said. "I will go and fight this Philistine." Saul looked at him with disbelief. "You are not able to fight him," Saul replied. "You are only a youth, and he has been a warrior since his youth." But David explained what Saul could not have known. He told him how he had spent years protecting his father's sheep. Whenever a lion or a bear came to seize a lamb, David chased after it, struck it, and rescued the lamb from its jaws. If the beast turned on him, he grabbed it by its beard and killed it. David said,
"I have struck down both lions and bears, and this Philistine will be like one of them, because he has defied the armies of the living God. The Lord who saved me from the paw of the lion and the bear will save me from this Philistine."
Hearing David's conviction, Saul relented and said, "Go, and may the Lord be with you." Saul then dressed David in his own royal armor. He placed a bronze helmet on David's head, strapped a coat of armor on him, and gave him his sword. But when David tried to walk, he realized he could not move freely. He had never trained with such heavy armor, nor did he need it.
"I cannot go in these, for I am not used to them."
He removed the armor, left it behind, and stepped onto the battlefield clothed only in faith and a shepherd's garments. David walked down to the valley and paused at a stream. He selected 5 smooth stones and placed them in his shepherd's bag. With his sling in hand and his staff by his side, he walked toward the giant. Goliath was insulted when he saw David approaching, a young man with no armor and no sword. Then he shouted,
"Am I a dog that you come to me with sticks?"
He cursed David by the names of his gods and threatened to tear him apart. But David answered with boldness,
"You come to me with a sword, a spear, and a javelin, but I come to you in the name of the Lord of hosts, the God of the armies of Israel, whom you have defied. Today the Lord will deliver you into my hand, and I will strike you down and cut off your head. And the whole world will know that there is a God in Israel. And everyone gathered here will know that the Lord saves not with sword or spear, for the battle belongs to the Lord."
As Goliath moved forward to attack, David ran quickly toward him. He reached into his bag, took out a stone, and placed it in his sling. With practiced precision, he swung the sling and released the stone. It flew through the air and struck Goliath squarely in the forehead. The stone sank deep, and the giant fell forward to the ground, dead. David ran to him, took Goliath's own sword, and cut off his head. The impossible had happened. A shepherd boy defeated the greatest warrior of the Philistines with nothing but faith, a sling, and a stone.